So today, we're going to dive into a really specific and honestly, a pretty powerful vision of love and marriage. This is a view that's been built up over centuries by some of Christianity's most important thinkers. We're going to unpack how these saints and doctors of the church saw the union between a man and a woman and what that means for, well, pretty much everything else.
Okay, let's just jump right in with this idea from St. Josemaría Escrivá, because it's a big one. He's really pushing back on the idea that marriage is just, a social contract or, I love this phrase, a remedy for human weaknesses. No. He frames it as something way higher, a genuine, supernatural calling. And honestly, this idea right here, it's the key that unlocks everything else we're going to talk about.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at marriage itself as a sacred vocation. Then, we're going to explore the role of purity and why it's called the guardian of that love. After that, we'll see how this one virtue is actually lived in two totally different ways. And finally, we'll pull it all together to see the big picture, this integrated vision of love.
So, what is it that takes marriage from just a simple agreement to a full-blown sacrament in this tradition? Well, to really get that, we need to go back in time to one of the most influential minds in the early church. And that mind is St. Augustine. We're talking way back in the 4th century. He laid out 3 specific goods, you can think of them as core purposes of marriage, and he argued that it's these 3 things together that make the whole thing honorable and a true blessing.
Now, here's the crucial part. You can't separate these 3. They're a package deal. First, there's Proles, which is about being open to having children. Second, you've got Fides, or faithfulness, that deep mutual loyalty. And third is the Sacramentum, the unbreakable sacramental bond that makes it permanent. Think about it. In a world that often sees marriage as temporary, this vision presents it as a lifelong, life-giving covenant.
This quote just perfectly nails that third good, the Sacramentum. The historian Bede, quoting the Gospel, really emphasizes that this bond is seen as something set up by God himself. The idea is that God is the one who joins the couple into one flesh, and what God has joined, well, that's not for humans to take apart.
Okay, so if marriage is this sacred, unbreakable thing, how is it protected? That brings us right to our next big idea. Because in this tradition, another virtue becomes absolutely essential, the virtue of purity, or chastity.
So that's the big question, isn't it? How does this idea of purity connect to that really high calling of marriage we just talked about? Is it just about a bunch of rules and restrictions, or is there something more going on here?
And what's so fascinating is how chastity, or santa pureza, holy purity, is defined. It's not presented as just a no. It's seen as a preservative. I mean, listen to this metaphor. It's the salt that preserves from corruption. Wow. The idea is that it's an essential condition to even have that intimate dialogue with God.
And this ties directly to a huge promise right from the Gospels. The ultimate goal of this virtue isn't just about self-control for its own sake. It's about a profound spiritual clarity. The pure in heart are promised something amazing, the ability to see God.
So the sources present this as a really clear choice with 2 very different outcomes. On one path, you have purity, which leads to spiritual sight, the ability to see things as they really are. But on the other path, what St. Paul calls the animal man is described as being just unable to perceive spiritual truths. So the stakes in this view are incredibly high. It's about perception itself.
Now this brings us to a really important point. You might think that chastity is a one-size-fits-all kind of thing, but according to these thinkers, that's not the case at all. It's a single virtue, but it gets expressed through 2 very, very different paths in life.
And the contrast is pretty striking when you put them side by side. For married couples, St. Josemaría says chastity actually includes showing affection as long as it's a proof of true love. But then for those called to the priesthood, St. Ambrose talks about total continence, keeping their ministry pure and unspotted. So you have 2 different callings, but they're both expressions of the exact same virtue.
So let's zoom in on what this means inside a marriage. It means physical love is built on a foundation of mutual respect and loyalty. Affection is actually the bedrock of family life. And marital relations are seen as dignified and holy when they are an expression of that true love, and, of course, when they're open to children. See, it's about integration, not elimination.
And then you have the other path, celibacy. This is understood in a totally different way. It's not seen as a rejection of love. Instead, it's a specific calling to direct all of that love and energy toward what's described as a closer union with God, without the beautiful responsibilities of family life.
All right, so when we put all of these pieces together, you've got the 3 goods of marriage, you've got the 2 paths of purity. What you end up with is a really complete and integrated vision of human love and of the human person. And at the very heart of this entire vision, you find the model of the Holy Family. The relationship between Mary and Joseph is held up as the ultimate example of this chaste love. It's a love that, as the source puts it, respects an integrity that God wanted to bequeath to the world. It's really the icon of this pure, devoted, and life-giving love.
And the goal here, as you can see in this quote, is that this ideal isn't meant to just stay as a far-off concept. The real hope is that it becomes a reality in every home. The aspiration is for each family to become a little reflection of the light of the Holy Family. You know, a place of genuine peace and serenity.
So, to quickly recap everything we've covered, marriage, in this view, is not a contract, it's a sacred vocation. It's defined by those 3 goods: being open to children, total faithfulness, and a permanent bond. Purity is the virtue that protects that love. And this one virtue is lived out differently in marriage and in celibacy. At the end of the day, it's a vision that really tries to integrate the physical, the spiritual, and the divine into one whole understanding of love.
So this ancient vision really offers a deeply integrated way of looking at love. And that leaves us with a pretty big question. In our modern world, which so often separates the body, the emotions, and the spirit, what, if anything, can we learn from a vision like this today?